The Democrats. Ooh, the Democrats. We don't like the Democrats here, really. If I could, I would be independent. In my state, we don't have, it's not possible for me to vote in Democratic primaries and be independent, so I'm registered independent. But we don't like the Democrats here, do we? Democrats, more like demon rats, more like poopy crats, more like neoliberal establishment candidate crats. You bad. All right, Dumbo crats, idiot, idiot poo poo brain crats. Yeah, thank you, demo cucks. We don't like them here, and that's why we started things like the Justice Democrats. That's why we started things like Our Revolution. That's why people like Bernie Sanders have been working so incredibly hard to uproot entrenched Democrats who have cozied way too far up to corporations, who have cozied way too far up into the status quo that's not helping people. Earlier last year, the Senate, Congress in its entirety had a 13% approval rating. 13%. Like, that is incredible. Like, over just under 90% of the people in this country don't approve of our main government governing body. 13% approve. Wow, that's bad. And the thing is, if I got a 13% approval rating at my job, I'd be fired. If I had a 13% approval rating streaming, well, I guess maybe we'd be here. And the Democrats kind of listen to that. Now, over the summer, we talked about it before. I'll rehash it, but extremely quickly. Lots of organizers came together. Black organizers in particular, black and brown organizers, came together to make a massive concerted push to get the Republicans out of office. They have just moved so incredibly far to the right. It was extremely quick and jarring lurch for the Republican Party in 2016, hopping onto the Trump train and just flying off a cliff. It's just been so bad and so detrimental to so many people. Organizers were like, hey, listen, we're just going to stop we're going to stop our feud with the Democrats a tiny bit to get them elected, to make sure that at the very least, Republicans won't have power over us anymore at the federal level. Now, at the state level, Democrats didn't do too well, and we're going to see that when it comes to the new gerrymandered maps that are going to come up very soon. But on the federal level, they did okay. But the big thing is they didn't do well. And even bigger thing, they didn't do as well as they expected. Joe Biden ran ahead of many state Democrats across the entire country. And that's a big problem for Democrats, because so many people were banging the drums telling them this is the time, all three branches are theirs, over 10 years in the making, it's finally going to happen, and it almost didn't. They were 2 seats down. Moving into January, people honestly thought that the Democrats weren't going to take the Senate back. Now, through a miracle, and when I say a miracle, I mean the good graces of people like Stacey Abrams and other organizers, Black Lives Matter, Antifa to I believe like a little bit more of a lesser extent, but the left-wing organizing in these places to get people out to vote has been immense, and just by the skin of their teeth, they made it. And that sent a message, because in between November and January, where they lost seats in Iowa, they lost their seat in Iowa, they lost their seat in North Carolina. There were many Democrats, federal Democrats, who were like, "Wait, there's something wrong here. People don't want to vote for us. What? People don't want to vote for us? That's crazy." And that lit a fire under them. And I think lots of people are kind of missing some things that are going on behind the scenes that makes me actually pretty hopeful about the future of the Democratic Party, in conjunction with what progressives and leftists are doing to push the party left. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, Schumer, who has, for his entire history of being in office, wanted to be Senate Majority Leader. I think that's actually his main goal. He wanted to be Senate Majority Leader, and for the first time in his career, and the first time in 10 years, Democrats have the Senate, and he's been able to be Senate Majority Leader. And I think he's taking this pretty seriously. I remember a little earlier in the year, once Joe Biden actually won, and it wasn't sure whether or not Democrats were going to be able to get the Senate, get those 2 seats in Georgia, actually take hold of the Senate. for the first time in forever, Schumer was writing off many things that Joe Biden can do from just the bench, from the executive office with his executive orders. He wanted Biden to do things like, on this very first day, cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt, expand Obamacare, ensure the continuation of DACA, stop deportations. There's so many things that he actually wrote down. I don't even remember them off the top of my head. There are pretty bold movements that you wouldn't expect from the Democrats 2, 4, 6, 8 years ago. You wouldn't see stuff like this, because they'd be loving to kowtow to the moderates and the centrists and the conservatives as much as they possibly could to get these sorts of concessions, maybe even reaching out to Republicans before they reach out to their fellow Democrats to make to just look more bipartisan. But now they've kind of taken off that veneer, ripped off the Band-Aid, and realized that they can't work with these people. They're insane. And I think they're actually starting to learn to love the progressive base, at the very least in rhetoric. And when it comes to that, they're making some pretty good moves. And the progressives in Congress are getting some pretty nasty concessions from the moderates. The year of the moderate, I think, is over. The year of the conservative blue dog Democrat, I think, is over. And we're starting to see the Democrats realize that not being bold and being scared of making big movements to actually change people's lives isn't going to let them win anymore. I mean, we can call back to the Obama administration, where Rahm Emanuel worked with economists to figure out a bill for the economy for how to get us out of the Great Recession, right? And the economists came back and they said, we need a $1 trillion bill to pass through Congress to basically kickstart the economy. And Rahm Emanuel and Barack Obama said, no, forget it. They said, forget about it. We're not doing it. And what happened? Well, they lost the House. They lost the Senate. They lost the presidency. They lost 1,000 seats under Obama. In those 8 years, they were demolished. I think, and usually lots of people say Democrats don't learn from their mistakes. I think they're starting to realize that bashing their head against the same brick wall of bipartisanship and like civility is only giving them a concussion. And I want to take a look at some things to kind of prove my point here. So the Democrats rejected recently the moderates' call to cut the eligibility for the $1,400 checks. Now, it's already a moderate position for the $1,400 checks. It should have been $2,000. It absolutely should be $2,000. These checks aren't set to roll out until March. The last checks went out in December. They're gone. Okay, they are gone. This isn't 600 plus 1,400 equals 2,000. This is just a $600 check and a $1,400 check in two different time frames. You can't tell me that like a fourth of a year has gone by, and now we're going to talk about how this is 2,000. So it's already a conservative proposal, and what they wanted to do was reduce the eligibility under 75,000, and they said no, absolutely not. We're not doing it. This is a massive blow against moderates that have had a pretty good death grip over the Democratic Party for a pretty long time. Radical Mark says Joe Antifa Biden. Yeah, that's his middle name. Joseph Antifa Biden wants to let Mexican Muslims abort your guns. Oh my, he's gonna abort my guns? No, we got a baby in the oven. Oh no, my little baby 9/11. Holy shit. And this as well, the Progressive Congressional Caucus, which isn't like the furthest left progressive caucus. It's more of like the big overarching progressive caucus that's progressive asterisks. You know, that caucus stopped the moderates and conservatives from bringing down the federal minimum wage from $11 an hour. Now, concrete in the bill that's being put forward right now, that's going to be going through reconciliation, is going to be $15 minimum wage. They're looking to push it down to 10, I think, and they were arguing for like 14, and then they settled on 11. But the massive progressive caucus, the big one, said that they are not going to do anything. Yes, 10. They were looking to do 10. They were looking to do Joe Manchin was like, I'll settle for 11. Okay. He was like, I'll throw you a couple crumbs. How about 11? Hey, how that look, toots? They said, absolutely not. 15. And also Schumer right now is working with, hello? What is happening with this website? I just wanted to look at the headline. Schumer's working with AOC to announce funds for families who lost loved ones during COVID but couldn't afford a funeral. This is also a really big, massive gesture for people whose family members have died, but there is no possible way for them to afford a funeral or anything. This is a great way for them to have processions after the fact, and just a good show, just a good faith show from the Democrats to be like, hey, listen, we understand your pain. We know that you couldn't afford this. Here is this money. Now you can, at the very least, when things die down a little bit more, you can bring your family together to mourn the loss of the loved ones that you had when you couldn't before. And also, it's not just coming from the House and Senate either. It's coming from the White House itself. Kamala Harris is putting pressure on Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Okay, Kyrsten Sinema, the now senior senator from Arizona, and Joe Manchin. We know Joe Manchin from West Virginia. She went to go do interviews at both of their states in Arizona and West Virginia to be like, oh yeah, we got to do things big. We can't afford to do things moderate. Moderates, I've never even heard of. We got to go big with the bill, guys, right? You guys are suffering, right? You know that. Hey, Joe knows it. And when I say Joe, I mean Biden and Manchin. And they're trying to outflank these Democrats from their left. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are trying to outflank these Democrats from their left. This is a big play, and Manchin was fuming about it. But fuck him, fuck his ass, dude. Who cares what he thinks? Hey, listen, you got to be on the bill. I'm sorry, it's time to go big or go home. And none of these Democrats want to go home because they know in 2022 they're probably gonna go home if they don't go big. So I think they're really learning to. I think they're really learning from the past mistakes. And I think a lot of the progressive fire that's been on them is helping them push them in the correct direction, because they've been kowtowing to the right, they've been kowtowing to the moderates, they've been kowtowing to the conservatives for so long, reaching out to Republicans. Now that they've all like gone completely crazy, and I like to say the Trump cum chalice is absolutely empty right now, and they're licking the bottom of the bowl. They're drunk off of it. They're done. Okay, it's time to look to a new direction. They have to find a new way. And people like Schumer and lots of the other Democrats, after expressing their grievances, after they thought that they didn't win back the Senate, after they thought that they would, are looking for a new future. And I'm so happy that they're going bold. There's so many people in this country who need them to go bold, who cannot afford for them to do watered down bills and half measures, and push it out the door and say it's good enough. Absolutely, it's not good enough. And I don't even think this bill is good enough. We need to go further than this. But this is a great starting off point to see that this administration and the Democrats are serious about not being complete goons anymore. They're still bad. Oh no, I'm punching my mic. I'm Deepak. They're still bad. There's lots of them are still goons. Lots of them are still completely entrenched into the corporate war that corporate America has on the working class and working poor of this country. But they know that if they do not do this, people will punish them. They're learning from their mistake. It's not anybody else's fault, but their own now. And this is why we need so many more progressives in Congress, to make sure that the heat stays on, to show them this is the direction that this country needs to go. And there is not a second that we must lose off of it. They're learning. They're not as dumb as you think. Segment over.